And we're going to go back to the book of Abraham, Hebrews. And we're going to go back to where we were in verse 8. Okay, he continued to quote about the new covenant from Yirmiyahu all the way into what I read just then. And then he stops in verse 13 and says this. He says, by saying new, he has made the first old. Now what becomes old and growing aged, some versions say decaying, is near disappearing. So see, the Torah was written on the skins of animals, and it would rot and decay. And this was to be a lesson to teach us that what was greater than that which was on the page was what came from the Most High himself. It is what was in the Most High's heart when he said these things. It is that eternal word of YaHuWshua that lasts forever, and the moth cannot destroy it, and neither can age make it mold and rot. Okay, but it says that it is near disappearing, and the Greek word there for near simply means near, that it has not disappeared yet, but it is near disappearing. Remember, YaHuWshua said that he did not come to do away with the law, the Torah, or the prophets. He said that not till heaven and earth pass away, not one jot or one tittle shall pass away from the Torah or the prophets till all is fulfilled. And the earth is still here, the heavens still remain, they have not passed away. So therefore, the Torah has not passed away, but it is saying it is near disappearing. So it is near time for the heavens and earth to be renewed. And when that happens, then the Torah scrolls will go away. But YaHuWshua says that heaven and earth may pass away, but his word will never pass away. And we know that he is the word of YaHuWshua. So there's some things that you're really going to have to meditate on and pray about here. All right. So it's saying what is growing and aged is near disappearing. It hasn't disappeared yet. And keep in mind, this was written way after YaHuWshua had already resurrected. So this man says, after YaHuWshua resurrected, that the Torah still hasn't disappeared yet. It's near disappearing. All right, in chapter 9, starting with verse 1, it says, now the first covenant indeed had regulations of worship and the earthly set-apart place. For a tent was prepared, the first part in which was the lampstand, or what is called the menorah, the 7-branched candlestick, and the table and the showbread, which is called the set-apart place. Okay? And the second veil, see, there was another veil that divided the set-apart place from the most set-apart place, which is called the Kadoshim. You've probably heard it called the Holy of Holies. All right? And after the second veil, the part of the tent which is called the most set-apart, to which belonged the golden censer, and the Ark of the Covenant overlaid on sides with gold, in which were the golden pot which held the manna, and the rod of Aaron that budded, and the tablets of the covenant, and above it the cherubim of esteem were overshadowing the place of atonement, the mercy seat, about which we do not now speak in detail because the Ark of the Covenant had been taken away during this time. And these having been prepared like this, the priest always went into the first part of the tent, accomplishing his service. So he always went into the first part and did his service. But into the second part, the high priest went only once a year. This is what the Torah says. He went only once a year, not without blood. So once a year on the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, the high priest, only then he could come in, and he came in with blood, which he offered for himself and for the sins of the people. The set-apart spirit signifying this, that the way into the most set-apart place was not yet made manifest while the first tent was standing. So the way wasn't made manifest. That veil still separated man from that most set-apart place. They couldn't go there daily. They could only go there once a year, indicating that something still had to be done and accomplished. And what needed to be accomplished is that veil needed to be torn in half. Now there's a great revelation on this. YaHuWshua died on the preparation day of the Passover as the perfect Passover lamb, that when YaHuWshua saw the blood, he would pass over his people. However, YaHuWshua was sacrificed outside the city. Now to many people, they don't think that even matters. Well, it does matter. The Passover lamb was sacrificed always inside the city. There was only one slaughtering, one sacrifice that was done outside the city, and that was the Day of Atonement sacrifice. that sacrifice that had to be done once a year, and only on that time could the high priest come in and sprinkle the mercy seat with the blood for the atonement of himself and for the people. And see, YaHuWshua was killed on the day of Passover as the Passover lamb, but he was killed in the fashion of the red heifer, the Day of Atonement, the Yom Kippur sacrifice, so that he could tear that veil. That veil, remember when YaHuWshua died, the veil torn in half, so that the way to the most set apart place could be made, so that man could come boldly through the throne of favor, through grace, and their faith in YaHuWshua, okay? So he passed through the veil of the heavens on that day, and he sprinkled the blood of the mercy seat on high. So he made a way. Now, if you think about that veil, that physical veil that was here on earth that tore on the day that YaHuWshua died, it's very interesting because that veil was made out of the blood, out of the flesh of animals. And the word for the rods that it was hanging on is called hooks in your scriptures, and the word is a letter in Hebrew, and it's the letter wall, because the letter wall is a word in Hebrew, and it means nails and it means hooks. It's the third letter of Yahuwah's name, hand behold, nail behold. And see, the flesh of that animal is hanging on hooks, just like, or nails rather, just like YaHuWshua was hanging at that particular moment on nails. And as his flesh was torn and he gave up the spirit, so did the flesh of that veil tear in half that was hanging from those nails. Such a beautiful picture of the Father's name, Yahuwah, which is the 4 letters in his name means hand behold, nail behold. Hallelujah. All right. So he's made a way. All right. It says in verse 9, which was a parable. All these things will be a parable for the present time, in which both gifts and slaughterings are offered, which are unable to perfect the one serving as to his conscience, only to foods and drinks and different washings and fleshly regulations, imposed until a time of setting matters straight. But Messiah, having become a high priest of the good matters, through the greater and more perfect tent. See, he is the high priest in the more perfect tent, the one whose pattern was given to Moshe to make an earthly tent, the one that's in the heavens, the one that's in Shemayim, where the waters of the name dwells, that we were talking about earlier. All right. Through a more perfect tent, not made with hands, that is not of this creation. Up in the heavens is where he's at right now. Entered into the most set apart place once and for all, not with the blood of goats and calves, but with his own blood, having obtained everlasting redemption. For if the blood of bulls and goats and the ashes of a heifer sprinkle the defiled set apart for the cleansing of the flesh, how much more shall the blood of the Messiah, who through the everlasting Spirit offered himself unblemished to Elohim, cleanse your consciousness from dead works to serve the living Elohim, who is Yahuwah. And because of this he is the mediator of a new covenant, so that death having taken place for redemption of the transgressions under the first covenant, those who are called might receive the promise of the everlasting inheritance. For where a covenant is, it is necessary for the death of the covenanted one to be established. For a covenant over those dead is firm, since it is never valid while the covenant one is living. Therefore, not even the first covenant was instituted without blood. See, the first covenant had blood, and the blood in the first covenant and the Torah of Moshe was to teach you, to be a schoolmaster, to show you the ways of Mashiach that were coming soon through his blood.